Hello everyone, Scara Bray here, and today we are looking at Epic the Musical and why I think it's so well written. For those who are not aware of my background, I am a writer myself, having written the Accountant Isekai series on Amazon and Re-Shattered Memories on Royal Road, though Accountant Isekai was on Amazon too. So this is not quite a reaction video, well it is a little bit, but more reaction analysis where I analyze the writing of this series. Now, I am also so Epic the Musical is a very well written, basically hypothetical theater musical about the, Odyssey. And I'm going to discuss it as well as comparing, its writing on its own merits, as well as comparing and contrasting with various things in Homer's epic. And, quite frankly, I think this is a much better adaptation of the Odyssey than the Nolan version. In particular, there are a few reasons why they'll go into, but one of the big ones is that it captures the essence of the Odyssey much better. That being that this is a story about a soldier who's coming back home from war. Now, like various Greek epics have an alternate meaning, like the Odyssey is a soldier returning home from war, the Iliad is about a man overcoming his anger, and Oedipus Rex is about a guy who finds out he was adopted at the worst possible time. Just kidding, it's about why bad things happen to good people. Now, this story starts at the end of the Trojan War with the Trojan horse. I'm going to do minimal commentary on the animations, because a lot of these were made by various different animators, I'm fairly sure, or even if this channel that I'm using, which I'll leave a link to in the description, is using one animator, these can vary heavily. I'm more going to comment on the writing, dialogue, and delivery by the actors. But anyway, the actual story of the Odyssey starts with Telemachus in Greek, in Ithaca. And it doesn't get to Odysseus until a while after, with the framing device being that Odysseus is telling the story to the Phaeacians, who are some people that he's washed up along the shore on. The Phaeacians so in various tellings of the Odyssey, the Telemachus part and is either tends to be delayed until later or left out entirely, while the Phaeacians, they are often cut out too.
Alright, my brothers, listen closely.
Now, Odysseus calls a lot of these guys his brothers often, which, I mean, I guess is to be expected since they're battle brothers who fought alongside each other in a war for 10 years.
Tonight we make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly. But now we'll be the ones who slay.
Yeah, now, a key thing is the framing of this is very much in line with how a lot of Greeks would have thought of the Trojan War. So, one thing to keep in mind is that the Greeks were not a monolith. They had many disagreements about many things, but generally speaking, the Trojan War was thought of as basically a just war. Because, the Trojans kidnapped Helen, and the Greeks were coming in to fight them, but that being said, the Greeks definitely acknowledged how horrible war could be and the tragedy of it. Because all war is horrible, though it's horrible for different reasons in different time periods. And the Greeks were well aware that even a war that's being fought for just reasons is still going to involve a lot of horrible atrocities.
Think of your wives and your children. Your families wonder where you've been. They're growing old and yet you're still here. Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yeah, so this is hinting at Odysseus' full motivation. He wants to go back home to see his family, which is, very good motivation, especially for a soldier returning home from war. I'm sure that a lot of soldiers throughout human history would much rather be at home with their wife and kids than in the middle of a war.
Yes, sir! Diomedes will lead the charge.
Good point. That's right. Good plan considering how Diomedes was able to fight gods and.
Agamemnon will flank the guards. Menelaus will let our mates through the gates and take the whole city at large. Teucer will shoot any outburst attacking. Little Ajax will stay back. Nestor will secure Helen and protect her.
Yeah, protecting Helen would be necessary for a few reasons. First off, not every Greek soldier would really know what she looks like, and well, look, the reason why warfare of this era was so brutal is because later ideas of treating your captives or treating civilians or just anyone as anything other than something to be killed or slaughtered just didn't exist at the time. Like, they didn't even have the medieval idea of sparing nobles and later commoners to take them for ransom, or the idea of keeping the commoners alive for the most part so they can work the land for you, unless you count the enslaving part. But anyway, typically what would happen when a city was sacked, and this is what happened to Troy according to many of the Greek sources, all the adult men would be killed, and the women would be sold into slavery after being raped. The children would very likely be sold into slavery as well, though I think a lot of the children were just straight up killing the Trojan one. But that being said, this was typical of a sack of this time period. And, like, now, typical, but not always the case. There were some cases of merciful commanders who didn't kill all the men and sell the women and children into slavery. They enslaved the men, too, rather than just killing them. And there were also some commanders who were a bit more merciful than that, but especially after a siege, the sacking of a city, it could be absolutely horrible. The soldiers would often let up their pent-up frustration from years of siege, or even just months of it, out on the city at large. Like, there were cases where everyone in a city was killed by the soldiers. Like, the case I could point out is Caesar in Gaul, one of his sieges where his soldiers literally ran out of food, ended with his army just massacring everyone in the city, not sparing anyone, not taking any slaves. So yeah, warfare in this period, very brutal, and if the Trojans were the ones besieging the Greeks and capturing their cities, they would have done the same thing.
Neo, avenge your father, kill the brothers of Hector. Yes, sir. Find that inner strength now. Use that well of pride. Fight through every pain now.
Oh, Zeus. If anyone count on the animation all that much, but I like that detail there. Now, the purpose of these other guys showing up is basically, aside from establishing Odysseus' strategic mind, basically just a sort of fun little cameo of the various heroes who fought in the Trojan War, because most of them aren't going to appear in this story later on, even the ones who appeared in the Odyssey. This story is not a 100% accurate adaptation, as the creator of it admitted, though I still prefer it to some other adaptations.
Try for what you wish for, what do you fight for? What do you live for? What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for? Penelope.
And now we're getting confirmation of Odysseus' motivations in this war, or rather, motivations as a character, both in this war and after. I fight for us! Yeah, he, very accurate to his character in many ways, just wants to get home. And I do like how he's picturing Telemachus as an infant, and this is a nice detail from this artist. God, I might talk about the art more than I want to, but anyway, because Telemachus was an infant when he last saw him. He'd be 10 at this point in the story, but he was an infant last time, so Odysseus doesn't know what he looks like. Remember, the internet and even, phones or pictures aren't a thing. The best you can get was like a tapestry or maybe a painting.
What do you live for? Penelope. What do you try for? Telemachus. What do you wish for? I'm on my way. What do you fight for? Attack!
Oh right, I remembered something else I wanted to say. Another reason why Helen would need protection is because some of the soldiers probably blamed her for the Trojan War. Now, was Helen responsible for it or not? Most of the Greeks seem to be pretty sure that she wasn't, because she was, like, kidnapped by Paris and Aphrodite, but there were different traditions, in some of which Helen went willingly. In fact, there's a play, Trojan Woman, where one of the women of Troy accuses Helen of, like, making up the whole golden apple story to get out of any responsibility for the Trojan War. The play ultimately leaves it ambiguous as to whether or not she didn't, But the Greeks did not agree as to whether or not Helen went willingly or was kidnapped, though they tend to lean more towards kidnapped, and, well, in either case, the soldiers, some of them would probably blame her for it, and she needed to be protected from them, even if they were technically there to save her.
Who was that?
A vision of what is to come.
Zeus's introduction. So most of the animations I've seen just have him stay in eagle form and not here. Zeus in this play is actually more evil than he is in the actual mythology, which is quite impressive.
Not be outrun.
Though in this first song, he seems to be being about as reasonable as he gets in this play, at least for the most part. Because, like, he seems almost apologetic as he tells Odysseus what he needs to do.
Can only be dealt with right here and now.
Tell me how.
I don't think you're ready.
And Zeus is kinda right here.
A mission to kill someone's son.
Yeah, like, after this, the first impression of Odysseus, and probably the audience as well, is that Zeus doesn't think he's good enough to beat this guy's son in a fight, and that he'll probably get killed as a result of it, though that isn't what Zeus means.
A foe who won't run, unlike anyone you have faced before.
Say no more. I know that I'm ready.
I don't think you're ready.
It's just an infant.
Which fits every single thing that Zeus described him as. The foe won't run because he's incapable of running. He is someone's son, though that could pretty much describe any male human. And he isn't like anyone he's faced before, because, like, Odysseus, well, at least in this play, there's probably different traditions of it, but pretty much everyone Odysseus killed was an adult up to this point, as far as the main traditions go, as far as I know.
It's just.
Now, there are different traditions as to whether or not Odysseus killed Hector's son. In a lot of them he did, but others disagree and say it was someone else. Like I said, the Greeks weren't a monolith, and there was never a Bible of Greek mythology that defines it as this.
Just a boy. What sort of imminent threat does he pose that I cannot avoid?
This is the son of none other than Troy's very own Prince Hector. Know that he will grow from a boy to an avenger, one fumed with rage as you're consumed by age. If you don't end him now, you'll have no one left to save you.
Alright, so, I want to talk a bit about the Greek concept of fate. And this kind of applies and it's kind of diverged. So the Greeks believe that you couldn't change your fate for the better. This is often defined as thinking you cannot fight fate or change fate at all, but that isn't true. You could make your fate worse in Greek mythology. Like, for example, let's say a soldier was fated to die in battle, and he fights against it. Well now, instead of cleanly getting his head cut off with a sword, he's shot in his non-vital areas with arrows and bleeds to death painfully.
Say goodbye to Penelope. You can say goodbye to Penelope.
I could raise him as my.
Yeah, so Odysseus was just hit with his motivation. And, like, to get back to his family. And he, now, despite being hit with it, despite being someone who's been fighting war for 10 years, he basically is still fighting against it. He's trying to suggest alternatives that could potentially be used to avoid a horrible fate. Yeah, Zeus almost apologetic, but also making it quite clear that this is either his doing or the doing of the gods as a whole.
Please! Please don't make me do this. Don't.
There's a great callback to this later, but like, one of the reasons why this moment is so key is because I think the act of having to kill a child in the play really sent Odysseus down the spiral that in, well, Epic the Musical that caused all his, well, attitude later combined with other things. I'll explain more as we get to
Make me
it.
do this.
The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is lose.
And Zeus just presented another of the big themes of this play. No matter what he does, Odysseus will have blood on his hands. The only difference he can make is whose blood is on his hands. Such is honestly kind of the reality, especially of that time period. I'll probably get more into it when we get into Ruthless, but if you were a person, especially if you were a king, you would have blood on your hands by the end of your reign. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. All you can do is prevent it from being, well, is try to make it as little your people and as much the enemy as possible. Next.
I look into your eyes and I think back to the son of mine.
Yeah, like, Odysseus isn't making this choice any easier for himself here.
You're as old as he was when I left for war.
Honestly, how Odysseus was brought to the Trojan War in the mist, which obviously can't quite be covered by this musical since it takes place long after, was kind of heartbreaking. Like, Odysseus, in Homer's works, he's particularly depicted as a really nice guy by the standards of ancient Greece. This musical goes even a bit further than that. So, Odysseus, however, is normally depicted varyingly. Generally, he's morally gray in ancient Greek plays, but he sometimes is on the lighter side of things. Like, he actually gets a positive depiction in that play about Ajax, despite being the one who's indirectly responsible for Ajax's death. But basically what happened is, Odysseus pretended to be insane to get out of going to war and was just plowing the fields. So one of the other Greeks threw his infant son right in front of his plow, because, well, if he was insane, then he'd run over his son. Odysseus was just pretending, so he obviously passed and had to get brought back to war.
Will these actions haunt my days? Every man I've slain is the price I pay. Endless pain. Close your eyes and spare yourself the view. How could I hurt you? I'm just a man who's trying to go home, even after all the years away from what I've known. I'm just a man.
Now, this just a man line has several different meanings as its meanings. One is that, despite the fact that he's a king, Odysseus is still a human, just like anyone else. He's like someone who just wants to be away from this war to go back home to his family. Very, like, relatable experience for many soldiers and what the Odyssey is about. Another thing is pointing out that Odysseus is a mortal. He isn't a god, and he isn't a demigod. He is a descendant of Hermes, but he's several generations removed from Hermes. So if there's any divine blood in him powering his actions, it's weak at this point. He is in the end a human. And he is not the equals of the last generation of heroes. Like guys like Theseus, Heracles, people from their generation right before Odysseus's, they were not the equal, like they were far beyond Odysseus's generation. They were also, according to Hesiod, I believe, the only generation that was superior to the one that preceded them. But yeah, like, To give an example, the Cyclops would probably pretty easily be killed by someone of Theseus's generation, whereas the Odysseus and his crew in the actual mythology were pretty much powerless against it directly. Though I would say that there is an exception in the form of Achilles. Achilles was probably on par with heroes of the previous generation, if not better than most of them. And I say that because Achilles' father was one of the heroes of the previous generation, though an old man at the point of the Iliad and Odyssey. But Achilles was definitely stronger than his father, so he was basically the last of the heroes who was really like the previous generation of them.
For his life, deep down I would trade the world to see my son and wife.
A line that gets very true and darker in this, well, I'm calling it a play, yeah, in Epic the Musical, in retrospect.
I'm just a man. But when does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster?
A very big through line of this play, repeated several times as Odysseus basically descends into doing whatever it would take to get him back home.
When does a ripple become a tidal wave? When does the reason become the blame? When does a man become a monster?
When does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster? When does a man become a monster?
And thus Odysseus steals himself and does what was ordained by Zeus. Wait. No, he doesn't steal himself. He bronzes himself.
I'm just a man.
Ah. Now, I don't know how accurate this is 100% to ships of this time period, like I only have a basic knowledge of them, but it is more accurate than having Odysseus in a Viking longship, which wouldn't be invented for well over 1,000 years after this point.
600 men under my command, with only one goal in mind.
Make it back alive to our homeland.
This establishes the stakes. Now, I am approaching this from the perspective of writing terms of someone who's never read the Odyssey before, and who hasn't seen any other adaptation of it, and thus doesn't know how this will go. So, the stakes have been established. If Odysseus fails, 600 men are going to die before making it back home.
600 men, 600 miles of open sea. But the problem's not the distance,
It's what lies in between.
and Ithaca's waiting. My kingdom is waiting.
Yeah, like, even if you didn't know this was Odysseus, that even though he hasn't said his name yet, through cultural osmosis, you're no doubt going to know that he's the king of Ithaca.
Penelope's waiting for me, so full speed ahead.
Also, God, I don't want to talk too much about the Nolan Odyssey, but they try to put a more cynical aspect on it by saying that the Trojan War is over trade routes, which, I mean, you don't need to do that. You can still keep the Helen thing while leaving a more cynical aspect on it, because, like, Menelaus was only the king of Sparta because he married Helen. So if she was off in Troy, essentially married to Paris, yeah, so, yeah, there you go.
Full speed ahead. Captain, Eurylochus.
A quick establishment of Eurylochus, who in this play is definitely one of the most important characters. Now, In the actual Odyssey, Odysseus and his crew aren't anathema like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table are, or like, well, I suppose, Jason and the Argonauts. They do have some characterization in individual characters, but for the most part, Odysseus' crew are basically an amorphous blob that pretty much all has the same character and opinions for the most part. Like, there are exceptions in the book, but they generally aren't as detailed as they are here. Not necessarily a bad thing on either end. They serve the role they need to in the plot. And aside from Eurylochus and Polites, most of the crew in Epic the Musical are also basically an amorphous blob. Once again, not a bad thing.
600 men, 600 men, 600 men with big mouths to feed. And we've run out of supplies to eat.
Curse the war of food stores depleted.
600 men,
600 men,
600 reasons to take what we can.
And yeah, that was how a lot of armies, up until very recently, were supplied through looting, just stealing stuff. Like, the Greeks did it, the Romans did it, the Japanese did it, the people in the Middle Ages did it. Now, supply lines were used and were important, but ultimately they weren't enough up until very recently in history. So armies would just casually steal stuff as they went through an area to resupply. Sometimes they would buy stuff and pay for it from the locals, but if they did it, they would very rarely pay for it for what it is worth. Though, even paying for it at all was a big thing. Like, during the war between the Visigoths and the was it Ostrogoths? Yeah, the Ostrogoths and the Byzantines. The Byzantines would just steal food as they passed by, while the last Ostrogothic king, or at least their last chance of beating the Byzantines, would actually pay for it. And use it as propaganda, saying that the Byzantines were thieves compared to him. Now, granted, he didn't give people a choice about whether or not they'd give his army food. He'd just take it and give them money in exchange. But still, that's better than taking it without paying for it. But yeah, most armies would just take what they could, like Eurylochus said.
So Captain, what's the plan?
Captain, what's the plan?
Watch where the birds fly.
Watch where the birds
They
fly.
will lead us to land.
They will lead us to land.
There will hunt for food, my second in command. Now for speed ahead.
We're off and away we go. We're off and away we go.
Captain Polites.
Polites, another character who's very important in Epic, even if he, well, has a short lifespan.
There in the distance, I see an island. I see a light.
Yeah, I do kind of like that they don't depict him wearing glasses in this one, so the characters, in the way they're mostly drawn by artists, not universally, but the characters tend to be drawn to resemble the people who are playing them as voice actors, which I think is a nice touch. And I'm pretty sure the guy who voice acts Polites wears glasses, but they weren't a thing in ancient Greece, so I kind of like that they don't give him it here. But ultimately, it's not like this is really that meant to be that accurate, especially since, like, animated.
Lighting a fire, maybe they'll share some food, who knows? Something feels off here. I see fire, but there's no smoke.
I say we strike first. We don't have time to waste, so let's raid the place and...
No. Polites, gear up.
Yeah, Eurylochus and Odysseus are both still in the mindset of soldiers at war, but I'm pretty sure that the whole killing an infant thing really hit Odysseus hard, and now he's very reluctant to cause further bloodshed, even if he is more like Eurylochus than Polites at this point.
You and I'll go ahead. You and I'll go ahead. We should try to find a way no one ends up dead.
We don't know what's ahead.
Give me till sunrise, and if we don't return, then 600 men can make this whole place burn. Now for speed ahead.
Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead.
We're off and away we go.
We're off and away we go. We're off and away we go. We're off and away. Full speed ahead.
And here we go, the Open Arms song.
You can relax, my friend. Huh? I can tell you're getting nervous, so do yourself a service and try to relax, my friend. I'm fine, pull it.
Yeah, so Odysseus is still in the mindset of being at war. Polites is basically more like, oh, it's fine, the war is over, we don't need to worry about it too much.
Think of all that we have been through, we'll survive what we get into. I know that you're tired of the war and bloodshed. Tell me, is this how we're supposed to live? Look at how you grip your sword and I've said, why should we take when we could give? You can show a person that you trust them.
Oh, an owl! Okay, nice bit of foreshadowing from, like, the animators
You
here.
stop and lower your guard. Here we have a chance for some adjustment. Give it a try, it's not that hard. I'm telling you, this life is amazing when you greet it with open arms.
Yeah, Polites' whole open arms thing, it really starts to convince Odysseus as this song goes on.
Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
Stay back!
Yeah, so the Lotus... Oh, God. Okay, I kind of like the touch of the Lotus Eaters having masks here. And, yeah, you can... You know, see, they do have inhuman features, but... are those actual claws, or is that just weirdly drawn here? No, I think it might actually just be weirdly drawn fingers, but... So in most of these animatics and the musical in general, the Lotus Eaters are depicted as weird little creatures. In the actual myth, they were a bunch of guys getting high. And a bunch of Odysseus' crew eat the lotus and get high, and Odysseus has to drag them back to his ship.
My friend, greet the world with open arms.
We're only here for food.
Yeah, so the fact that they were humans in the mythology means that I kind of like the touch here of them wearing, like, these, like, masks and robes, which gives them an otherworldly sense, sort of like the creatures they're typically depicted as the musical, while also keeping them humans like in the myth. It's an interesting way of mixing them together.
600 friends are waiting for us to show our faces. Stay back, I'm warning you.
Yeah, like Odysseus still has not been fully convinced by Polites.
If we don't get back safely, my men will turn this place into blazes.
See? This life
Yeah, Odysseus definitely wasn't expecting them to just give
is
food.
amazing when you greet it with open arms. Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, so we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
My friend, I wish that I could say that I agree.
Yeah, like,
But look at the way this fruit is glowing and filled with glowing seeds.
yeah, Odysseus, thanks to the scene with Athena later on, figured things out.
It took me a while to notice just what kind of fruit they eat. It's a lotus, it controls your mind and never lets you free.
Yeah, like,
That's what we'd get with open arms.
yeah, plot-wise, this is basically Odysseus's last, well, for a while, rejection of the open arms idea, up until he fully rejects it later, but we'll get to that.
Lotus Eaters, I'd like
Polites keeps up his open arms things, though, because the Lotus Eaters aren't really evil, they're just too high to think straight.
to show my friend that kindness is brave. Could you tell me where there's other food to eat?
The cave, scary cave.
A cave!
Oh, I like the touch that one of them said scary cave, warning them, or at least trying. I didn't notice that before. Pretty good detail.
Saying there's a cave where we could
Like, once again, the Lotus Eaters aren't evil or malicious, they're just high.
feast. And where do we sail to find this food-filled cave?
East that way.
Thank you.
Welcome.
This this life is amazing when you greet it with open arms. I see in your face there's so much guilt inside your heart. So why not replace it and light up the world? Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
And now Odysseus, due to his various traumas, has finally been convinced. Though Odysseus definitely was traumatized at the end of the Odyssey, but for various different reasons than in this play, or really any other depiction that shows him as traumatized.
Greet the world with open arms.
You can relax, my friend.
Have you forgotten the lessons I taught you?
And now the establishment of Athena. Out of all the gods in the Odyssey, a lot of them appear, and I think the three most important are Athena, Hermes, and Poseidon. Probably followed by Zeus. Zeus was overall a more revered god than Poseidon among the Greeks, but the Greeks definitely really respected Poseidon heavily because they were a civilization that heavily relied on the ocean. The Romans, not so much. They acknowledged him and honored him as a god, but Poseidon wasn't one of their most important gods. Rome did rely on the Mediterranean, especially for logistics, as their empire expanded, and in the end, the Mediterranean logistics reliance of it would keep the Romans from expanding into other places. There were multiple times, when the Romans sacked Parthia's capital, and where they claimed Mesopotamia. But ultimately, their reach was limited by the fact that their logistical networks got weaker the more distance they got from the Mediterranean. That being said, the Romans still mostly relied on their army more than their navy. They did a lot of overland trade, and the sea wasn't as important to them as it was to the Greeks. Though, that being said, one of the biggest misconceptions people have about the Roman gods is that they were just the Greek gods with different names. In reality, the Roman gods were Rome's native pantheon that took characteristics of the Greek gods as time passed. Especially since a lot of Romans bought Greek slaves to teach their sons, and they would have taught them the Greek religions, which resulted in Rome's culture getting a lot more Hellenized. So it's less that the Romans ripped off the Greek pantheon, and it's more like the Romans had their own pantheon, and then the Greeks were, a bunch of Greek slaves who were teaching Romans. Bit of a weird concept, buying a slave to teach your son, but it was a thing. Basically went, oh, yeah, that Jupiter guy, yeah, he's our Zeus, I think. So here's what Zeus is like.
Athena!
Have you forgotten to turn off your heart? This is not you.
Which honestly is a bit of a way of, this is establishment of what Athena is like. So Athena, right now at the start of the play, is basically a lot similar to Odysseus at the end of the play. While Odysseus at the start of the play is similar to Athena at the end of the play. And she's demonstrating it. Or rather, she's establishing that she is basically someone who is a warrior and understands the reality of warriors of the time.
Changing from how I've designed you. Have you forgotten your purpose? Let me remind you.
Now, in the play, Athena is basically a mentor to Odysseus. Not quite in mythology, she is his patron deity, and pretty much the most important goddess to him, in terms of his story and relationships with the gods. But she ultimately, I'm pretty sure she didn't train Odysseus directly.
Goddess of wisdom, master of war. My life has one mission. Create the greatest warrior. I had a challenge, a test of skill.
Now, this is basically just backstory and explain. Well, not just that. Just is not a bad way of thinking in this case. This is critical backstory to explain Odysseus' relationship with Athena and how far back they go.
Only the best could
Now, I don't know if this is based on an actual myth, like I don't know every single Greek myth, or if this was just made up for Epic the Musical. I do know that there were several Greek magical boars in Greek mythology. One was killed by Atalanta, another was captured by Heracles, and there are probably more than that I don't know of. Boars are vicious, powerful, dangerous animals. So they were very important to a lot of cultures for symbolism reasons, especially actually a lot of German cultures of the classical period.
One day a boy came for the thrill, a boy whose mind rivaled the boars on the wheel.
Let's go!
Maybe one day he'll follow me and we'll make a greater tomorrow. Then they'll see I know he'll change the world, 'cause he's a warrior of the mud. Maybe one day I'll reach him and we can build his skills as I teach him. If there's a problem,
Yeah, like which, in this case, the Warrior of the Mind is demonstrating a similarity between Athena and Odysseus. They both believe, in both the mythology and this one, in using their wits to win things.
he'll have the answer. He's a warrior of the mud.
Show yourself. I know you're watching me. Show yourself. I can see you.
How can you see through my spell?
Yeah, now, this is, actually more resembles a scene from Late in the Odyssey, which is basically the one time Athena and Odysseus actually personally meet when Odysseus is back in Ithaca. Odysseus and Athena are meeting, and they're both in disguise, and neither of them is really giving away who they are. And Athena basically goes, yeah, this is why I like you so much, Odysseus. You never give anything away to anyone.
Lying, and you fell for my bluff.
Well done, enlighten me, what's your name?
You first, and maybe I'll do the same.
That maybe is a bit of foreshadowing, because, like, he doesn't say it in this particular song, not until a bit later in the musical.
Nice try, but two can play this game.
Nah, don't be modest. I know you're a goddess, so let's be honest. You are Athena. Athena, badass in the arena.
Yeah, I do like the rhyme of arena, but I'm also very sure that arenas were, well, they probably had something somewhat like that for training.
Matchwoody and queen of the best strategies we've seen.
If you're looking for a mentor, I'll make sure your time's well spent.
Yeah, looking for a mentor, and
Like
then...
a plan, God isn't man, best is a friend.
We'll see where it ends.
Yeah, like, Odysseus wasn't looking for a mentor, he was looking for a friend, while Athena wasn't looking for one, she was looking for a mentor, for, like, well, a disciple.
Maybe one day they'll follow me and we'll make a greater tomorrow. Then they'll see I know we'll change the world.
I also do like the greater tomorrow thing, because, like, this is, I think in this play, a bit of character development on Athena's part. She wants to make a greater tomorrow, but it seems to her making a greater tomorrow, at least at this point in the play, is just making someone who's a better warrior than everyone else because he can outsmart the others, rather than any actual improving of the world. I think, and yeah, it takes until I think the end of Epic the Musical for Athena to fully realize what she has to do to make a greater tomorrow.
We are the warriors of the mind. Maybe one day we'll reach them, and we can build their skills as we teach them. If they
Yeah, build them skills. Athena probably wants to make the greatest warrior in the world, so that way she can make a legacy of warriors like that. Basically just a bunch of great strategists for like a greater tomorrow.
problem will have the answer. We are
Perhaps the strategist acting as guides to others in general, too, which, pretty decent plan, I'd say.
warriors of the mind.
I still intend to make sure you don't fall behind. Don't forget that you're a warrior of a very special kind. You are a warrior of the mind. Don't disappoint me.
Yeah, from a god, that is a very stressful line. Thank you for watching, everyone, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.